Hello YouTube. Right, this video is a how to foil or create a natural metal finish with foil. It's kitchen foil, it's this stuff. So if you want to know how to do this, and this is a piece I've just done, and that's how shiny you can get it. Stay tuned in, and the footage is to follow. Now I do warn you, it's a long video. If you don't have the patience to watch the video, you certainly won't have the patience to do this, so bear that in mind. So roll the next part. Hi, okay. This video is going to be in more than one part because the process for foiling it isn't a 2-minute job, and it's kind of important to get the process right. I suppose I can't just explain it in a short video, so I'm going to do it in 2 parts, or maybe 3 for the, I don't know, I'll see how it goes, but basically it's definitely going to be in 2 parts, because the first part is going to be a very basic explanation of how to foil a simple object. So when I say a simple object, this is a tail. When you buy an Airfix kit, it comes with 2 different tail planes. You can have different for it depending on the thing. So I'm using this as an example of a simple thing to foil. Now it's important before you do anything is to prepare the surface so it's got no lumps or bumps on it. And trust me, foil, when you put some foil on top of this stuff, if there's a hair under it, it'll show. Cat hairs, anything, any bits of grit, dirt, fluff, it will show through it. So it's important to keep your environment clean. You can get rid of it, but it's better if you don't have it there. So you keep your environment clean, make sure that the part's clean and smooth and no lumps on it. So that's the first part. Now then, the tools you need. Obviously the primary thing you're going to use is foil. It's not expensive stuff. I mean, you can buy, look at it, there's 10 meters on this roll. I think there's 10 meters on it. It's really cheap. It's a disposable item that's infinitely available everywhere. Now, when you're going to buy the foil, don't buy the super cheap stuff because it's quite thin. And even because it's that thin, you can't sand it very well. You can, and it also shows every single blemish known to man underneath the foil, and it tears. So it's very, very difficult to use on anything but a flat or very simple surface like that. So buy the good quality stuff. Any brand, it doesn't matter. So this is extra strong. So if you see extra strong on it or whatever, buy that because it's ideal. Now when you use foil, it has 2 sides to it. It has a dull side and it has a shiny side. The shininess of it is irrelevant because we're going to sand the living daylights out of that when we've put it on. So it doesn't matter that it's shiny now. But I have found it bonds better if you put the glue on the dull side. So just bear that in mind. Glue wise, I haven't got a bottle of it. I've only got it in this jar at the moment because it's made by the same people that make Decal solution. And I don't know about you, but these bottles just fall over all the time. I knock them over, and I've done it a few times with this stuff. So as soon as I buy it, I transfer it into a jar that won't fall over. But I've got some more on order, and I will put a picture up of the actual product that I use. And this stuff transforms how you use it. I mean, I've used all sorts of different kind of adhesive, but this stuff's fantastic. It's designed specifically for this job, and it works really, really well. Tools, you don't need many tools. You need a good quality scalpels, very sharp blade. Get a new blade as much as you can. Knife, a loose blade and a handle blade. Now, this is the most important bit, tool wise. It's just to sharpen stick. Now, all these tools here are for sculpting. I got into doing sculpting a little bit actually, and making heads and figures and things like that. And these are sculpting tools. Again, you can get them off eBay, Amazon, wherever. But this is it's like a burnishing. I use it as a burnishing stick, and I use that for 95% of this process. It's just a stick, and it gets all. The more you use it, it goes all like, I don't know, like a piece of wood goes all polished and shiny. So that's the most useful part of it. These tools here, we won't be using these at the moment on this particular video because these are more for manipulating the foil around or inside compound curves, because to get foil around a compound curve or over a compound curve, it has to bend in multiple directions, hence it's a compound curve. Now to do that, you've got to kind of, it's a bit like panel beating, but on a much smaller scale, isn't it? But you do have to stretch the foil. It has to stretch. You're not stretching it because you can't physically stretch foil. It will just tear. It'll rip. But you can. But it does stretch because you kind of pulling it, and as you're pulling it, you're gluing it, pulling it and gluing it, and there's a technique to it. And if you get it wrong, it scrunches up, and it kind of, if you get a kink in it and it overlaps itself, you've had it. You just got to take it off, start again. I'll explain all this when we do it. I'll probably do it anyway because when you put it on the piece, it's not a destructive process. You're not going to do any harm to the part that you're using. If it goes wrong, you can just take it off. And what you do need to do to remove it, I haven't prepared any. It's just a jar of IPA. That's filthy as this. But I'll get a jar of IPA and need it anyway. It's just isopropyl alcohol. That's readily available just about everywhere as well. I buy it in big jars. And that is an ideal solution for cleaning up afterwards, because you do need to put the glue on with the brush. I tend to use a flat, wideish brush like this. Now you'll notice when you paint it on, if you leave your brush for 5 minutes, it'll go rock hard with this. You'll think, oh, that's ruined. But it isn't. You just dunk it in IPA and it'll go soft again and it'll just be usable. So again, it's easy to clean up and afterwards. So at the moment, those tools, we don't need those. All we need is that, some knife blades, and the glue and the foil and the part that you're going to do. Now, at one time I used to paint the glue onto the actual part I was foiling, which you can do and it works fine. But the downside to that is, when you put your foil on, it's a bit like, I'll try to compare it to something. I don't know, if you're a bit like wallpaper, when you're overlapping something, if there's no glue on the overlap, you can't, because there's no glue there. So what I actually have to do is then paint some more glue on the overlap and then blah blah blah. If you put it on the foil, you don't have that issue. You still might have to touch some glue up afterwards, but what I'm going to do today, and vitally important when you're working with it, don't try and think, oh, I need to foil that piece and cut it out. Use big pieces. You don't have to. It's so cheap. It's throwaway. It's easier to handle if you start off with a bigger piece of foil and cut it down afterwards. So that's what we're going to do. So first thing I'm going to do, while it's drying, it doesn't take long to dry, but it's basically like a contact adhesive, I suppose. It has to dry before you can put it on the part. While it's wet, it doesn't work. So I'll just demonstrate that bit first. I'll go off camera while it's going off, because there's no point me waffling on while it's drying. So this piece is actually a little bit big, so I'm going to cut it down. So I'm going to cut it down to about, my scissors gone. I'll cut it down to about this big. You don't have to be too careful with that. What I tend to do, I don't know which is the bottom or the top on this one. Yeah. I'm going to start on the bottom. I tend to prefer to do the bottom first and then overlap the top over it. This isn't the finished product, this is just a scrap tail. I'm not going to use this one on this particular model. This is for a different version of Spitfire that I'm building. So we'll go to the bottom there, so that's going on there. Okay. So, simple then. You glue. You can't put this on you can't spray it. You probably could spray it, but your airbrush would be like dead. you spend your life cleaning your airbrush out. I just don't think it'd work. And to be fair, you don't need to. If you're too haphazard with this, you will get brush marks in the glue, but I don't think it's a problem. I don't. It can sometimes bobble up. Just don't worry about that. So yeah, get it a good covered. Just a nice thin coating like that. And just leave it alone, and you'll tell when it's dry because it'll go kind of clear. So I'll come back on camera when that's dry, and in the meantime I'll clean this brush, because if you leave it, as I say, if you leave it there like that now, it'll be like rock hard. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, back again. This isn't the same piece of foil, because I started doing this and then the cat came in and started howling its head off. So it spoiled all the footage. So the cat's now outside. So I've had to do it again. So I had to remove it from there. It's basically, it's the same thing. So the foil's now dry. You can tell it's dry because it goes matte and you can't see the glue anymore. So there we go. So on a flat surface like this, it's relatively easy to put on. You're just trying to centre it into the piece, and then just press it down from the centre. Just run your hands across it. I've got some glue on the back of it, it doesn't matter. And just gently push it out to the sides. You don't want to start going around this edge first and then trapping air under it. You won't trap air under it, but just be mindful of it and be careful when you push it down. And just work your way out from the middle, putting gentle pressure on all over. And just feed it out there. I'm just going to get this glue off here. I've got some glue on the outside surface of it, which is making my life a little bit hard. Just wipe the glue off. Right. Press the glaze down around all the edges. You can't see any detail coming through at the moment because I haven't burnished it down to the surface, but we don't want to do that just yet. I'm sure you can appreciate why this process takes so much time. You don't want to be working with large pieces of it because it just becomes unmanageable. So I tend to work on it in like maybe a panel at a time on a fuselage or a wing. Maybe I can maybe bridge 2 or 3 panels at a time, but I tend to prefer to just do a few at a time. It's just easier to do. It takes longer, but it's certainly a patience tester. And you've just got to accept that it's going to take longer than painting. But the rewards are there if you're patient with it. So now that's pretty much. The glue doesn't go off. It does dry, but you've got a lot of working time. You can mess with this for quite a long time, and it won't be a problem. So what I would do with that now. You've got to look at your edges and where your overlaps are going to be. You need a decent pair of scissors. And bear in mind, there's another piece going to go on, kind of over the top of this leading edge, and not necessarily on the trailing edge though. We'll see how we go with that. So you want to remove the bits you don't want. Just kind of get rid of them. I'm just going to keep it reasonably big at the moment. So, I don't know if you've ever, when I used to build flying model aeroplanes, we used to use a product called Solar Film and Solar Tex, and doing this is very similar. You used to have to cover a model in it, it's like a plastic. And it reminds me of doing that, so anybody out there that used to build model aeroplanes, you might find this a little bit easier, because you'll have done something very similar. With that you used to shrink it on, you used to hit it with a hairdryer and or a heat gun, and then it shrinks on. Now what you can do to make sure it bonds better is just, at this point you can just burnish the edges a little bit. We'll burnish it all over when the piece is on. Oops. You'll tend to find as well when you're doing this, you'll end up with pieces of this stuff everywhere. Because it's sticky as well, so it sticks to your shoes and it sticks to everything. But yeah, it's alright. So we can trim that corner. Can we trim that corner? I'm not going to trim that corner. I'm going to trim it into that corner there. If you imagine. So we've now got that effect going on. Okay. I'm going to cut that. You'll get to know with practice. I wouldn't recommend you go to start this sort of project on something you've not, that's precious to you. I would practice on some scrap pieces, really. You can't do any harm. It's just you'll find it a bit frustrating to start with, and you will be. You'll be removing the foil a few times and doing it again, sort of thing. Now, on a real Spitfire, in this area here, for instance, it would be green, and that seam is accurate. There is a seam on a real Spitfire tailplane just like that. So that's to scale. You can foil into it, and you can then paint over the foil if you want to, which I probably will, but you need overlaps, because if you leave an edge like this, while you're building it, you'll be catching it all the time, and you'll end up pulling the foil off in areas, and you have to encourage it back again, and you can end up tearing it. So you need to kind of make sure it stays down. So what I want to do now, it depends on the model and the way the seam lines are arranged and everything. But the way there's a definite edge to this. There's a rolled edge on the leading edge of this tailplane, and I want to kind of get this over that rolled edge, and I'm going to cut it at that point. So what I want to do now is start burnishing it. It's a little bit of a compound curve, is this? So we're going to burnish that over that edge. So you steady away on this. Don't try and do it too quickly. So we're going over the edge, and you don't want to be getting to the point where it starts to kinkle up and crush. If you try and crush it over an edge, it won't work. You'll just ruin it. So you'll lose the ability to stretch it. So it's just a little bit at a time. Keep burnishing the edges. And try not to get kinks at the lip where you're folding it. I don't want to. I hope I can demonstrate this effectively enough for you to be able to have a go. So yeah, it's just a practice thing. You've got to kind of keep messing up a little bit and then practice a bit more. So we don't want to be trying to crush kinks out, because you will not do it. It's not forgiving in that respect. The glue has got to be holding it to the plastic. So keep it this way. So this video could end up being quite long. I do apologise, but it's the only way I can show how to do it. It isn't totally vital this goes over that seam, but I'd like to do it if I can. So I haven't done this for a while, so I'm a bit rusty. So now if you can see that edge now, can you see it's got like kinkles in it like this? And there's a chance there that if I try and push that too far now, I'd end up causing a wrinkle that you'll never get out. You'll end up crushing it into the metal, and it'll never come out. So it's better to pull it back again and then start again. Now what I've done, you can see it's caused a bit of a lip there, so that needs to come off again. You can keep lifting it off, putting it back again, lifting it off, putting it back again, as much as you want, to be fair. It's alright. So now we're getting there with this. I'm pressing on quite hard here, because what it's doing when you press on, put pressure on, it is stretching the metal. I could put music on at this point, but I'm not going to. You'll just have to listen to my heavy breathing and deep sighing and inward swearing, probably. Right, I think we're alright there. just start to see the rivet detail coming through from the other side. So you can get away with a little bit of kinking on it, because we're going to sand this. A lot of people probably wouldn't think, why would I want to sand it? It looks great as it is. You do need to sand it. Well, I think you do, because it removes all the little tiny little hairs and blemishes, and you can create different effects with sanding it as well, because you can make it look dull, you can make it look shiny, all sorts of things. Okay, so we've got that over enough now to land in that seam line. So we can now see that panel line of the leading edge. Hope you can see it on camera. So what I do at that point, I will cut into that. And if you're careful enough, the blade will follow the panel line. I suppose at this point you are cutting the plastic, or you're scratching the plastic. Run off a bit of that. Doesn't matter too much from this one. So now you can remove that excess piece. So we've got a nice rolled edge on the leading edge. Yeah, it's gone all shiny already, because burnishing it's made it all polished and shiny. But that's by far not done yet. So the next bit is to tidy up these edges. Now we're not going to file into there or into there, because obviously this bit is going to be bonded to the fuselage. But while it's in this state, it's vulnerable, because you're catching it and you could end up pulling it off again. So what I would do with this is just, I'm going to go into there and just fold it over a little bit before I cut it. And then we can cut into it. You can always remove more of it later on, but this is just to kind of keep it from lifting while you're doing the process of it, if you like. I think in this case I want this one to be folded over anyway. I do want an edge in there, because the rudder, well, the elevator, sorry, wouldn't. I probably have the elevator drooped on this sort of model, so I'm going to cut into it, but I'm going to leave a bit inside. Again, you can trim that bit afterwards. Just want to make sure that edge is burnished down. Now probably, because these hinges are in the way a little bit, I can't get the scissors in very well. I'll give it a go. So, I've now got that going on. So then we're going to burnish into there. Okay, and then we're doing the same into there. There's like a row of rivets here, you might be able to hear it. Can you hear that? So I'm just going to fold that into there like that. And the same on that piece. Make sure it's nice and glued in. So that's alright, I think that's pretty much how I would finish that edge off. Obviously they're all different kits out there, I mean the shape of the parts. Yeah, they're all different. So that bit's on now, but it's not finished by any means. So what we need to do now, I haven't actually pressed that in there properly either. It's very important to keep these edges safe. I say safe because you don't want them lifting up or catching. One thing you can't do with foil is you can't glue it to anything. So if you've got to glue this to anything, you'd have to remove this bit of foil. You might get away with it because of this tab here. We'll go over that later. That's pretty much as good as it needs to be as regards getting it on there. Now what we need to do with that now, there's panel detail under this. There's like a, I don't know if I can show it on camera. There's like an access panel here. That would be probably for the control wires and stuff. So just get this tool and just burnish it in. You see it coming out now, it's popping out. And the whole towel is covered in rivets and yeah, detail basically. Now if you get your, it's better to put it on a cloth actually. If you get this flat and just burnish it quite hard and press it on pretty hard now. And it is tough, it's tough stuff, you're not going to tear that now, it's glued down. It's pretty good. As long as you've got the edges, as I say, safe, you can press in quite hard onto that surface. That's like a hole there, I don't know what it's for. I think there's another one there. So we're burnishing quite firmly onto that surface. What you can do, you get a cloth on it as well, press down on it. Yeah. So we've now got foil on that surface. I'm pressing pretty hard. You don't have to press overly hard. It's good to get the detail out. So we've got I can see most of the detail. What I tend to do as well, before I file something, I take a picture of the surface before the file hits it, because especially when you're starting to like introduce another panel next to another panel, you forget where the file is. When you've put another piece over the top of it, you can forget which panel line you're up to. So I tend to just grab a picture with my phone, so I know where I am, if you like. I'm just picking out the detail with this burnishing tool. I don't know if you can see the rivets popping out now. So I'm just burnishing them in, if you like, and picking them out. You can see them coming out now. I don't even see them on camera, but they are popping out. There's like a row of rivets. Rivets there. So you can forget they're there, you can forget to burnish them in, if you like. Sorry, this is a very lengthy process, but there's no short way of demonstrating this really. At least I can't think of any other better way of doing it. So I'd rather be a bit long-winded and then people ask me, I'm not quite sure what you're doing there, or blah blah blah. So sorry, just bear with me. So that's, you could get away with that as it is. It looks pretty good, I think. But what I need to do now is do the other side, because turn me on now. So yeah, I'll do the other side, and once the other side's done, in fact, shall I do the other side on camera or not? I don't know if it's necessary. I think in this case, doing the other side's the same, but what I would do with this leading edge here, when I do it, I'll overlap it a bit, but I don't think I'll bring it right. You could overlap the leading edge, you could bring it right over again, because you wouldn't see it, it'd just look like a panel line again. In fact, I will do that, I think I'll bring it over this edge. So I want to make sure I can see that panel line when I'm doing it. Alright, so yeah, I'm going to prep up another piece of foil, and I will show it on camera because I think it's good to see it, and I'll be back shortly. Okay, I've done this side. I haven't finished foiling it, burnishing it all down on this side yet, but basically I've got to the stage where I need to roll this edge over here. So I thought I'd save a bit of time and just get this bit done. I haven't been as meticulous on purpose with this one, so you might notice, I'll show some pictures later if I can, but there's little bits underneath, there's little bits of dust and things underneath there, and I'll try and show why sanding can be quite a useful tool as part of the process, because it does get rid of some of these little marks and blemishes. So what we're going to do now, we're going to now fold this foil over onto this foil and then create an edge onto that seam line there. Now what I have done, I've left this a bit longer this time. Now when I do this, I tend to do it kind of close into my chest, if you like. You work on it quite close in. I can't do that when I'm filming, so I have to work more away from my body, so it's a bit more tricky for me to do this, but we're alright, we can cope with it, but it's not how we would normally do it. So now we're just going to burnish that edge again. And because I've left a bit more length on there, it's easy to kind of keep pulling it. It's not bonding as well as I want it to, that edge there, but we're getting there. So I know I've classed this as a simple object, but it's actually more difficult than it looks actually, because of this curve in both directions. It's a bit more tricky. But, not far off now. It's a bit of a video, you can just, you know what's going to happen with this, you can just skip forward a little bit, I guess. I'm looking for that edge, which I can just about feel now. Don't be tempted to, when you get like this, don't be tempted to, I'll just think, oh, go for it and just hope for the best, because it never works. You've got to be patient with it. It's everything about this process is patience. I guess model making is all about patience, and patience is a learned skill. You know, it comes with practice. Okay. Well, that is now good enough to trim. along that same line. So I'll blade in there. Voila. And now we've got a roll edge there, that's 2 layers of foil there. As I say, it's very important to keep these edges down. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to finish off burnishing this down properly. And I'm going to burnish all of this down so that the detail comes out just like I did on this side. And then I will come back on camera and I will show you the next stage, which is going to be the sanding part of it. I'll be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. It's all burnished down all over. All the details is now shows and everything, and it's all tidy and stuff. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to sand it. Now a lot of people, I'm going to try and show some better pictures close up that you can see the surface. Now it doesn't look bad actually. It depends on what you're trying to achieve and what sort of finish you want. I'm quite happy with that really as it is. But when you start, I'll have to do this on another video, but when you start adding more paddle lines next to each other or over the top of each other and things, the sanding process kind of unifies the foil and it makes it all kind of blend into each other, which in a good way of course. So I prefer to sand it anyway, and it also gets a better shine, because if I polish that now, it'll emphasise any slight imperfection in the surface, which at the moment you can't really see it, but when you polish it, you want to get it really shiny and mirror-like. It's not a good plan, it don't look good. So all I do to polish it, this is the Tamiya sanding pad. This is 2000 grit, but it's been used. I don't know if you ever use this stuff, but it don't last 2 minutes. You have to use it a couple of times, and its edge goes, and it goes quite. It's not very good at sanding anymore, but it's ideal for this. So I tend to keep all these little scraps for doing just this. A little bit of water on it. Just go for it. And it'll start to go black because it's pulling off the metal. Now if you've got any raised areas, some kits have got like bumps and lumps in the areas. If you do too much of this, you've got to be a little bit careful, because you can end up sanding the foil off over the bumpy bit. Now you can cheat doing this with a bit of silver paint. So if you find a bit that you've just taken off, you can try and find a paint that there's loads, you can get loads that match it. So you can touch it up afterwards with a bit of paint, if you really need to. It's going quite black now, you may notice. You can do it in straight lines, like this. Now that kind of effect, if you just rough sand it, it can look quite good on a model that's been out in the weather a little bit and not been particularly looked after. It's like a typical bare aluminium aeroplane, I suppose. I quite like that look actually. It's alright. And if you do it in different directions, like if you did one panel line like this, that was a panel, you can do the next one sideways, the other way, and it will show a difference when it catches the light. That's right, you can't see on camera here, but you see it, you might notice it. There's a definite difference between that direction and that direction, so you can create effects doing that as well. What shall I do? I'll leave that side as it is for now. I'll just concentrate on this one. So yeah, you can sand it in as much as you like, really. It's quite tough and durable, and you won't sand through it, unless, as I say, unless there's a bump in it, or a really, you know, a very sticky heavy part. So that's pretty good now. It's just going to do the leading edge. Okay, so now we've got a. So I would say that finished now. It really does look like proper aluminium. It's a nice effect. I think that would go well on a wartime. I don't know, a wartime P51 or something like that, or anything. It's good because it has a patchiness to it and that weather beaten sort of grungy look to it. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to do the Spitfire, I've decided. If you watched the other video, I was in deliberations to what plane to do this on to show it. So I'm going to do the Spitfire again. And I want to do it as a show aeroplane, so I don't want to do it as a weathered aeroplane at all. I want to do it so it looks as good as it can be, if you like. So I've now got that quite smooth. You see my fingerprint, it's just in the dirt. But that's nice and smooth as that. So what I'm going to do now, I'll polish that. Now there's different ways of doing it, but you can use the good old teacup, which is stuff you use for polishing your car. It's for bringing the paint, it's for restoring the colour to your car, etc. You could use Brasso if you've heard of Brasso. I'm going to use this cloth again. You don't use right a lot of it. Your fingers will go black doing this. You get quite dirty doing this. I'll give it a good do with this. You can spend hours doing this. Again, if you don't overdo this, just do a gentle polish on it. Again, you get another effect on it. You get like a. You see it starting to burn. You can polish it, shine a bit more. So if you don't overdo the polish on it, it starts to look like that. Okay, but we're going to do some more on that. And be careful when you're doing it not to catch the edges and pull the foil off, you know, just nick the edges and stuff. It's not a disaster, but you know, it's just creating more work for yourself. Okay. Now we need to get that off. Let's clean it off as much as possible. I keep stressing this, it is a very painstaking, laborious, lengthy process. But I personally think it's worth it. It's worth the effort on some models anyway. So yeah, it's getting better, it's starting to shine up. But we can get it better than that. Now, I tend to find tissue, I haven't got any out, I should have got some to make. Kitchen roll gives you a better shine than cloth does for some reason. I think it's got an abrasive properties to it as paper, so you could use paper as well. That's a good sign, because it's gone kind of it's gone black with a bluiness, a bluey tint to it underneath, which kind of, once you keep going at that now, it'll come up like really, really shiny now. I don't know if you can see my ugly mug in it yet. It's getting there. Okay. You can probably see the camera lens or something, I don't know. But that's pretty shiny now. I probably wouldn't go much more than that, but we can try a little bit more. And I'm going to use a different polishing method in a minute, just to see if I can get a little bit more out of it. Okay. Shiny. That's the edge, leading edge. So that's the polished side, and that's the non-polished side. I don't know if it shows on camera, but that's got little dimples and bumps and all sorts of stuff in it. It's probably a similar shine to it, but it's not as clean and neat as this side is. Now there's one more product that you can use to make that a bit more shiny than that. You can get this on, I think it's an American product, it's called Cape Cod polishing cloths, and this stuff's fantastic, and it smells ace. It's a lovely smell to it. I don't know what's on it, but it's like you don't need much of it. It's weird stuff, but this really does bring it out. Again, it will go black. And you can do this process as many times as you like. You won't polish through it. You know, it's really coming out. I get a bit of clean cloth. One more piece. One sec. Now you can see my ugly mug in it. That's the leading edge. So there you go. That's the result. I'm quite happy with that piece. It's come out quite well. Trying to show light reflections in it if I can. That's a pair of scissors. Yeah, pair of scissors in my hand. Trying to show some detail in it. So yeah, it's pretty shiny. Get that out in the sun and it really, really sparkles. Now, when you've done that, you can just sand that off again if you want. You could just dull it off. What I have noticed as well, you could use a bit of IPA in it, and IPA does weird things to it. It's, let's see if it does it. It kind of dulls it off again. Doesn't always do it, depends. It just takes the edge off the shine. But you can polish it with IPA as well. I don't know, it's something that I'm working on all the time. I'm developing well, different ideas. It really has to. The ideas that I'm trying to develop is how to do more complex shapes. As I say, this is a relatively simple shape. It's really that's brought it up quite nice there. It's a relatively simple shape. It gets really tricky when you start doing complex ones. What I'm going to do, if people want this, if they like this video, it depends how people react to it. But you need to be able to know how to do this sort of thing. Now this is a completely different animal to do. How to file in that area. Can you imagine how tricky this is going to be? It's doable, but it takes a lot, even more patience and practice and stuff. So if I do a part 2, as I said, that's going to depend on how people watch this one. I'll show you how to do this. Now, again, that's going to be a long video as well, because it'll take a bit of doing all that. So there you go. Part 1 of how to foil plastic on a simple project. So I hope that helps you out, and I'll catch you later.